And the left here is so fundamentally dishonest, doing this thing. Well, illegals aren't allowed to vote. Why are you so concerned about illegals in our elections? Here's J.D. Vance, cut 5, just smacking Kristen Welker around going, yeah, the illegals have a huge impact on our elections. Watch.
Of course, people who are here and who are not documented are not eligible to vote. But
they're not eligible to vote, but they do go in the congressional apportionment. That's why California has so many more seats, is because they count illegal aliens. So even though they don't vote, well, some of them actually do vote, but hopefully most of them don't, they end up getting congressional representation that ought by right go to American citizens.
I know.
Okay, so here's why that's so important. It's not just that Kristen Welker was given a lesson that she needed. She knows that already. She knows that detail. She's probably surprised that J.D. Vance was able to whip it out so quickly. Here's the thing. That is for the meet the press consuming audience, wherever they are and however big it is, all across the country. So Kristen Welker puts the false talking point out. Well, they're not eligible to vote. And then J.D. Vance comes flying in with a top rope jump and lands on her with an elbow and says, yeah, illegals are completely distorting our elections. We apportion congressional seats and electoral college votes based on those illegals, and that is completely unfair to American citizens whose votes are watered down by that action. That should not be happening. And Kristen Welker has nothing to say to it because it's unimpeachably true. And so J.D. Vance, you want to talk about a guy who's capable, it's that guy. J.D. Vance has got his stuff together. And I love this thing. I hope he just keeps doing these kinds of adversarial interviews because every time he does, he's very good. Here's another one. She tried to confront him with Republicans are trying to rig elections by gerrymandering Texas, and JD says, "You serious? You want to talk about rigging elections and the way gerrymandering is done in the country? Get a load of Democrats." Cut 6. Take a listen to this.
If President Trump's agenda is so popular, why do Republicans need to add additional seats to the map?
Well, first of all, Kristen, you have to ask yourself, why have Democrats gerrymandered their states aggressively over the past 10 to 20 years? If you look, for example, at the popular vote in a lot of these states and Massachusetts, where 32% of the residents of Massachusetts voted for Republicans, 0 Republican federal representatives. So we're not trying to all we're doing, frankly, is trying to make the situation a little bit more fair on a national scale. The Democrats have gerrymandered their states really aggressively. We think there are opportunities to push back against that, and that's really all we're doing.
And yet, Mr. Vice President, you were able to win the House and the Senate in 2024. Why can't you do it again without adding additional seats?
But this is a very important question, Kristen. We had way fewer House seats than we should have. 1, if the Democrats hadn't aggressively gerrymandered, and 2, if illegal aliens weren't counted in the census for purposes of apportioning congressional seats. The best estimates I've seen is that in California, for example, has 5 additional congressional seats than it should have because they count illegal aliens for the purpose of apportioning representatives. Meanwhile, Ohio, my home state, lost a representative. We're literally losing representatives for American citizens in order to give congressional representation to illegal aliens. Republicans are trying to balance out the scales a little bit for basic fairness and for the integrity of our democracy, which the president cares about as much as anybody in the country.
This is so good. I love these clips. I love them so much. You know, JD explaining all of that really well. And none of this should have been happening. I love how she's like, well, aren't you satisfied with the fact that you have slim majorities in the House and the Senate? What more could you ask for? Are you serious right now? Do you know how much easier it would be if Republicans had the margins that the voters intended them to have? I'm not saying Republicans are great. Republicans have a long way to go before they're great. They have a lot of lessons to learn from people like President Trump and J.D. Vance, the Republicans in the House and the Senate. But that said, there's no reason that the margins should be as slim as they are right now, especially in the House, The Senate, those are statewide elections to begin with, so that's not a gerrymandered situation, but the House is. And as a result, you get this very slim margin in the House that should not exist. In the last census, blue states were overcounted. Blue states were given all sorts of extra votes that they didn't deserve, on top of the fact that they've imported a bunch of illegal aliens into those populations in order to pad the numbers. And then red states were undercounted in terms of their actual population. We know that for a fact. And as a result, there are fewer Republican members of Congress than there should be, and there are way more Democrat members of Congress than there should be. In other words, the system is rigged in the favor of Democrats. And despite those advantages, the Democrats don't control the House and the Senate right now.